We're officially rolling. All right, let's
Okay.
let's get this interview on the road then. Hi everyone, Anthony Fantano here, internet's busiest music nerd. Hope you're doing well. And we are here at Mac 650, a wonderful little performance art space and a gallery space in my home state of Connecticut. We will put information to this space down there in the description box. They have been generous enough with their time and their area to allow me to come down and do an interview with the one and only Mr. George Clanton. How are you doing, man?
I'm very good. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for making the time to come down. I know you're in the middle of a tour right now and you're just kind of passing through a little bit.
I'm in between two tours now. So the first one just ended, thematically speaking.
Thematically speaking.
That's right.
So the next tour is different than this one? Is it in a different body of land?
Yeah, so the next one is on the West Coast, and I'm touring with TV Girl. This one was the one that I just wrapped was the 100% Electronica label tour, which is my label that I made up.
All right. So I know for a lot of people, my coverage of your last record was kind of like their first introduction to what you were doing.
Yes.
And much of their knowledge of what you do and your sound and your style is pretty much that and onward.
Right.
But however, I know that your origin story goes further back than that, not only playing with styles of music that are sort of outside the pop and shoegaze realm that you've been kind of functioning in currently, but also with functioning in different music scenes and starting your own label and everything. Mm-hmm. I mean, it seems like you're kind of a self-starter kind of guy.
That's right.
Bit of a DIY ethic in you.
Right. It's I just watched a live stream that you were doing with someone on Instagram just the other day where you were like, oh, DIY is great, but don't like boast about it. But basically that's all that I do is boast about my DIY ethic.
Go boast away.
Yeah. Well,
boast it.
It's like born out of necessity. I spent all the time sending my record to places and they didn't really want it. Mm-hmm. So then my friend said to make your own label. I thought 100% Electronica was like a funny kind of meaningless, like no one really knows what electronica means. And I thought that was kind of funny. So I called my album that and the label. It's been,
which is a bit confusing.
It is. It's
for anybody going back.
Yes. But it makes it like twice as easy to sell T-shirts, which is nice. And
because you're selling a T-shirt for the label and the album,
right? And like myself
and yourself.
Yeah. So that is it's a off-screen, really popular product.
So that's something that you would recommend to anybody sort of making their own content. Make sure you use the same name and apply it as to many different things as possible.
I don't know if I would recommend that, but it did work out for me.
Okay.
It just
it's a case-by-case basis.
It's a case-by-case basis.
If it works for you, it does. If it doesn't, it doesn't.
Yeah, I think it's because I'm kind of like a good face for the label, at least for the fan base that it's found, and so they kind of all understand, that it's that kind of thing.
And what exactly up until this point have you found to be the fan base for the 100% Electronica label? Because it does seem, with your new record and prior, I admit that I'm intrigued by it, but I'm not exactly an expert in sort of this weird internet scene that has formed around things like your label, like Vaporwave.
Right.
Like it's almost like it's obviously electronic music, but it doesn't seem to be connected to the traditional streams through which most electronic is assumed to be. The rave scene and the club scene and what's gone on in the UK for decades and decades and decades.
Right.
Like what you're doing seems totally, and what most people are doing in Vaporwave and online seems just completely separate from that.
I agree. You were kind of leading me a little bit earlier to kind of talk about, what happened before and all of this. And so I have a Vaporwave history.
Yeah.
And very early, like in, maybe not like the very beginning, but, as far as people who are still active, it's hard to find someone, who was around at that time. Mm-hmm. So like everyone who's into Vaporwave, I'm on the short list of people to know, right? So I have
exclusive like top 5.
right, but the
The
thing is
Vaporwave
that
VIP.
everybody kind of makes fun of that scene or whatever, but it's massive, and it's a completely like untapped market commercially outside of the 2 or 3 DIY labels.
Well, what I mean, again, not an expert in it. I mean, I know some of the records, or I know a great deal of the records that have gotten the most play out of there, have gotten the most critical acclaim, and I do know that, like what you're saying, as far as being commercially untapped, that is very much the case. And the labels that do cater to that scene, I mean, they drop these short-run cassettes, and hundreds of them, they sell them out in minutes.
Right.
It's crazy.
Yeah, it is.
How underappreciated it is.
Well, it's
in
a
terms
music
of just
culture.
like-
Yep, I'm sorry.
It is a music culture, and it's very organic, which is why I'm just sort of like flabbergasted as to, why it sort of seems like this old guard of electronic music just doesn't really seem to take it all that seriously.
Well,
And I
the people
and
can
I
be toxic, They're
you think it's the toxicity?
Oh, well, in part, yeah. I mean, like, it's hard to...
Do you think, though, the Vaporwave scene's toxicity is unique, though, to toxicity that you might find in the hip-hop scene or the rock scene? Or
Well, that's something that I don't know a lot about.
Yeah.
'Cause,
I mean, rock scenes and hip-hop scenes can be pretty toxic as well.
Sure.
As far as hatred or misogyny or violence or,
I guess that's true, if you go on, like, and I don't know, a whole lot about it, so it's just kind of like I can't name a more interesting artist and with my experience, but, you go on and you look at, like, you can just scroll through Nicki Minaj's Instagram and everything that's being said. It's just a bunch of garbage,
Sure.
It's just hateful or talking about, I don't know, something very distasteful.
Yeah.
So, yeah, okay, good point. I don't know why that's never been brought to my attention as a counterpoint to me talking about Vaporwave being toxic. Maybe because I'm just only talk about it to people who only know Vaporwave.
Well, maybe it's a case of just, I think the inception point of the genre, or not the inception, but the introductory point of the genre for a lot of people was just kind of the memes surrounding Floral Shop and that sort of thing. And I think a lot of people sort of saw that, took that in, and were just like, this is what Vaporwave is. This is all that Vaporwave's ever going to be, and it can't really evolve into anything interesting beyond this. So now I'm just going to write it off as just like a silly meme genre.
Well, also in a lot of ways it hasn't.
No,
So,
well, absolutely.
and I think that's like the second point.
I would actually say in most ways it has not that is not actually borne out.
Right. So it's a very easy, like, okay, so if you want to be a rock band, there's a lot more, can we see this on camera? There's like, you have to like learn how to play instruments, and you have to like buy a guitar amp or a drum set. You have to have all these people together, and you know where I'm going with this. With Vaporwave, you drag your song into Audacity and our music software and slow it down. That's the entry point. Like that could be technically, that could be a song,
Sure.
and you could put a picture over it that embodies the way that sounds in a way that somebody finds appealing, and then there's your song. So you could be a Vaporwave artist just like that.
Sure.
So obviously most of the people who are into it are also making it.
Yeah.
Which is like makes a lot of bad music, I think.
It does, but it's also something that you can't necessarily say about every other genre. That a great deal of its audience are also participating in the craft as well.
Right.
I think probably the performance to consumption gap in a genre like hip hop is probably smaller than it's ever been, just because of its popularity at the moment. You know what I mean? But yeah, it is very much the case, and I do understand it to be so, that a vast majority of people consuming Vaporwave are also making it too. And I think, to sort of go back to your point about the rock band, though, when you are a rock band, the impressions left on rock fans by every other rock band prior to you is painting your consumption of that group and your perception of that group. Be that they're talented or untalented. Whereas something that people perceive as being totally brand new and wild and different as Vaporwave, first impressions are everything, because you have no other Vaporwave to base your assumptions of it on. So if your introduction to it is Floral Shop or some random meme that you saw,
which was my introduction to it.
Yeah. Or some random meme that you saw somebody making about Vaporwave online, then you're just like, okay, well, that's not something I'm supposed to take seriously. That's, that's just a meme.
Yes. Like a Simpsons image or something.
Sure.
Right.
So it's like, that could have a lot to do with just the unwillingness for some people to take it seriously. let me ask you, as somebody who's sort of taken the genre so seriously and participated in it. Two-part question to you: is there any sort of like, is there legitimacy to the claim that there is something kind of inherently mimetic or ironic about the creation of it? Like, is there sort of an inherent humor to it in a way, or can you just sort of like totally seriously make, Vaporwave with no irony to it whatsoever? And well, first we'll just go off of that question.
I mean, yeah, absolutely. I think so. Because I feel like even though I have kind of a funny, maybe a bit of an internet persona, I don't take myself as a person very seriously, but I do take my music very seriously.
Yeah.
And very personally. And so, yeah, I mean, if what I'm making actually is Vaporwave, which sometimes I say it is and sometimes I say it isn't, just depending on how it's serving me at that moment,
Sure.
But I think, you look at what Vaporwave is, and it's like everybody's kind of redefining what it is every month or so, or with each new, popular release. So I think, I lost track of the original question. Oh, can it be taken seriously?
Yeah. Or can it be created seriously without any irony or anything like that? The irony that most people on the outside of it assume that just comes with the territory.
Yeah, I think the short answer to that is, of course.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, yeah, of course it could be. Yeah.
And then is there any validity in your opinion to, because when Vaporwave was first starting to break on the internet and it became like this big topic of discussion, obviously there was this kind of prevailing opinion that I think ended up winning out in the end, that it's just a meme or it's silly or it's not, supposed to be taken that seriously. But then there was also kind of this converse opinion that, no, wait a second, this has some kind of deep philosophical roots in like communism, anti-capitalist, so on and so forth. And, if that's where your political leanings lie, that's where your political leanings lie. But, do you feel like there's anything kind of inherently political about the creation of Vaporwave as an art form?
Okay, so no. So yeah. I'm sure that there are people doing that. And
who do feel that way, of course.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I just think that, their music typically sucks. And it's just like approaching it the wrong way. I mean, to me, I'm kind of like, I'm making music and I'm trying to, when I'm sitting down, I'm making music. And, when we're talking about Vaporwave specifically, I'm thinking about kind of my other persona right now, not the George Clanton, but the George Clanton project. So I'm thinking about that when I'm answering this specific Vaporwave questions.
Yeah.
I'm sitting down and I don't really have an idea at all. I'm just kind of pressing buttons on the keyboard, and waiting for something to sound like extremely, to give me a rush of nostalgia, that black tar heroin rush of nostalgia. And when I hit it, I record it, and then I go to the next thing, and that's all I think about. I'm not thinking about what does this mean or how is somebody going to perceive this, other than does this give me, does this tick the check boxes for what makes me feel warm inside, and then that's what I do. And I think that, the like Floral Shop, I don't think that Floral Shop, I don't think that Ramona, I don't think that Vectroid, whatever, who was making it, I don't think that they were thinking about, that she was thinking about, anything political. I could be wrong about that, but it's not something that is widely known or that you read about, and I think, I'm pretty sure that she just kind of rejects that album. Well, gosh, I hate that I just said that on camera. I actually don't know. I know that she wasn't into it a while back, and then they've pressed a lot of records. I don't keep up with it a lot. I'm more of like, interested in in output more than I am a consumer. If you ask me any questions about what music I was into, you would find that I would start stuttering immediately and looking around the room and trying to come up with something to talk about that wasn't like really embarrassing and off-brand.
Well, I whatever the feelings that she has that that maybe harbored about that record. I mean, artists are allowed to feel a myriad of different ways about
Sure,
works
and
that they've made.
I can't put myself in her shoes the way that album, like, had that kind of response. You know,
Yeah,
when you're talking
exactly.
about, if you're talking about the number one.
Well, as an
memed-
artist, an audience's response to a record can definitely paint your perception of the album.
Yeah, and I definitely hate it when I'm not being taken seriously, or anyone like, well, that's not true, but you know, when people are talking about me and the way that I'm sure that she gets spoken about all the time on 4chan, you know, the ruthless masses that you seem to take so gracefully, you know, it can get under my skin. I understand.
Reading, you know, I'll speak from personal experience that over the years, exposure to it in the way that I've had hasn't always been like the healthiest thing. Reading the same crazy made up shit about you over and over and over and over does like have a warping effect about your own perception of yourself, and you have to like try to do your best to separate yourself from it and also surround yourself with people.
There's nothing you can do. I'm sure there's nothing you could do to stop it.
Absolutely. There's nothing that you can do to stop it.
And when you try to stop it, just talking about it right now is opening up the floodgates.
Sure, in a way. But you know, I think it's, you know, here's the thing. It's not actually too different from like you know, let's just open the floodgates on another topic. It's not really all that different from like incel culture. You know, if you read the things that incels say about men and say about women and say about themselves over and over and over, and you don't expose yourself to any other ideas, or you don't expose yourself to reality, pretty soon that becomes your reality.
Right.
You know what I mean? And if all you're reading day in and day out is crazy shit people are saying about you, I don't think some of them anticipate exactly how it can fuck with your head if you're exposed to it over and over and over. It's really that repeated exposure. I think if one person, and this depends on who you are, but I think if one person just sort of like says the nastiest thing about you that kind of gets in your craw a little bit, I think that's one thing. But to have hundreds of people, even if those people are maybe like a very loud minority, but to still have hundreds or even thousands of people repeating that same stuff, you know, over and over about you or to you, I think most of the people participating in it don't exactly anticipate the effect of sort of that dog pile thing. It can definitely fuck with you.
You know, you've got to, if we're talking in terms of better or worse, you've got it a lot worse than I have. You know, you're talking hundreds and thousands. Like, if it's just one person who says something to me, you know, I will, and anyone who's been in the van with me can attest, like, I will just keep going on. Like, someone in Philadelphia told me, like, just not even on the internet, not saying, hack your hairline, you bald fuck, or something, like, after you retweet, like, okay, so I've been talking about that nonstop. It's just like, hack your hairline, you bald fuck. Why? So if they're not trying to ruin my day, what are they trying to, you know, I don't understand. And it's I you know, that doesn't really bother me so much. It's not like I'm worried about my bald fuck hairline, you know. I'm more, it's just like, why is somebody trying to like if I'm trying to engage with people and like just have a productive day, like, why do I have to go over all these fucking train wrecks just to get to the good stuff? And it gets in the way of the people, you know, all the people who are DMing me about, you know, bullshit. It gets in the way of me being able to contact with somebody who's needs me, or, you know, whatever it is, like, and it frustrates me so much that it's just the more you get exposed, the worse, the harder it is to navigate.
You know, I think that to go even further off the topic of music, which we will get back to, I swear, but I think this is definitely
I'm better at this. Like, I know more about this, I think.
Well, I do think this is an important topic that impacts everybody. So I think obviously that person is probably trying to, like, you know, get under your skin and bother you. However, you know, all the people that say those sorts of things, they're not conscious. They're not working in tandem with each other. You know, they're obviously like sort of like small examples of that, where they might get together on like a forum or a 4chan board and like, hey, let's go fucking, you know, post shitty things about this person here and there. But
I'm sure they just see that you repost it and then they go and they look at, maybe they see too many nice things and they go, no, fuck this guy. I don't like the way,
Well, it's not even sort of the nice things. I think that what we don't necessarily acknowledge is that there are a lot of people in this country that I kind of function by the philosophy that hurt people hurt people. I mean, it sounds like kind of lame and
I know
stupid,
that's true. Yeah,
but it's absolutely true.
Yeah.
And I think that there are a lot of people without necessarily acknowledging it in America right now who are hurting socially, they're hurting economically, or they're so sheltered from all of those things because of some lifestyle that they've been brought up in that they have no reason to feel empathy for anybody else. And I think that contributes to a lot of shittiness that you see on the internet.
Yes.
All of that combined with a recipe where basically saying whatever you want to somebody, having little to no repercussions outside of maybe you were dumb enough to use your actual name and picture while you were saying something like super racist on Twitter, and then you got fired from your job, or your Twitter account got banned or whatever. You know, it's like that's probably the worst of the repercussions that you're going to see, and the thing is, because of that, people just kind of feel free to say whatever and do whatever they want, especially when you're younger and you feel like you're in a position where all of your friends are kind of just acting the same way online, or you just kind of feel invincible because you don't understand how much the internet could like fuck up your shit.
Yeah, or you've never felt like pain before, so you can't understand.
Well, I think that comes with the sheltered thing.
Yeah.
So it's like you have no reason to be sort of empathetic. So, and I think that at the end of the day, especially for somebody who's in the position that you're in, people are inherently like so deeply jealous of artists and musicians who are sort of like making anything out of themselves because not because of what you're actually doing, but I think most people just go on to assume, and anybody who's been a musician or has been around musicians knows that it's not the case, that basically because you're an artist and because you're seeing some success with it and because it's something you do consistently, you're just fucking, I don't know what, like having strippers twerk on you on a yacht and you're just like swimming in cash and you're just like having the most fucking fun of your entire life every second of the day. You're just like, it's just like fucking just orgasm after fucking orgasm from dawn until dusk. And it's just like so not the case.
I am like on tour, I am famous for the one who has no fun. Like there's just no time for it. It's just like I tell to off-screen Aaron, like, Aaron, you know that I am not trying to have fun right now. Because, somebody's got to...
Are we having fun right now, though?
Oh, yeah. This is no show
most
tonight.
Fun you've had all day.
I have fun when the cameras are rolling, when the music starts, but leading up to it, and afterwards. But leading up to it, like, it's, the DIY vibe, it's a lot.
The discipline.
It's so much more work than... people think. And
well, when you're doing it on your own, that's what it is. I think what most people don't really appreciate, unless you have a handler and a team and a manager and a bunch of people who are basically paid gobs of cash to do everything for you,
it's so
like
much.
It's literally just work.
Yeah,
you're just working.
It's the hardest job I've ever. I mean, it's the most rewarding job.
Yeah.
Spiritually and financially that I've ever had, but it's also harder.
You've got to work for everything.
I think harder than maybe most people are willing to work. Well,
that's what starting your own thing is.
Yeah.
Any kind of self-starting thing is going to be a lot of effort.
Right.
So to get back to kind of the musical element of things, when you were kind of opining over your introductory and your creation of Vaporwave, you kind of dipped into what I think is kind of an essential ingredient to that genre of music, and also I think the music that you're making now, because I don't know how much of it you consider to actually be Vaporwave as opposed to something that kind of takes off of it. You kind of put a smile on your face when you were talking about nostalgia. How essential to the recipe do you think nostalgia is? And I mean, I think there are lots of different kinds of forms of nostalgia. What type of nostalgia are you trying to attain? What era or sound or idea or experience is that nostalgia attached to?
Right. My childhood. So
which was during what time period?
The early mid 90s.
Okay.
And into the late 90s as well.
Okay. And we'd be talking about just like adolescence.
I'm 31 years old.
Yeah.
So
so we're talking about like adolescence,
broad.
early,
It's
like
very
like tweenhood.
not specifically.
Yeah.
So anything that just kind of takes me back to, yeah, okay, maybe, I don't want to be psychologically like torn apart here by someone, internet armchair psychologist on a YouTube comment.
Well, that's
it's going to happen.
It's going to happen, and it's all right. It's okay.
I guess like it was just when times were simpler before, before I don't want to say puberty because I just don't like that word. Is that the same?
Yeah.
Can I use adolescence instead?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, does it mean the same thing?
It's about in the same range.
Okay. Yeah. So just, like when I would like, listen to the radio and MTV was still like playing music. It was just a really, it just seemed like music was more fun then than it is now. Music's maybe more serious or, I'm just older.
I think honestly the whole perception that you've been talking about just comes with age.
Yeah.
The whole, not only with music being fun or less fun.
Yeah.
But also
absolutely.
Also
I'm
the
aware
perception, that times were simpler.
Yeah.
Times were simpler because
I was a kid.
You were a child.
Yeah. Everything. No, but that's what I'm not saying that the 90s were better. I'm saying that childhood was better because it was so simple.
When things were simpler for you, it just happened during that time period.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that also just happens to be an era in which I think a lot of, probably because they're in a similar age range, a lot of vaporwave producers are sort of like nostalgic for.
I think I'm a bit older.
Yeah.
Than the typical.
Yeah, I guess some of the vaporwave aesthetics take off more from like late 90s, early computer culture, and 2000s computer culture.
When it was new,
yeah,
the people who were making it then were the originators are about my age.
Yeah.
Right. So, and then so the new people are kind of taking in after that. And then I think, a lot of people say it's vaporwave is longing for like a past that never existed.
Speaking from somebody who's in a similar age range, I think I can kind of talk to maybe this misguided perception that vaporwave is kind of missing a past that never existed. Because if you lived during that point in time, like if the visuals that come along with vaporwave, the images you see on the covers, the types of sounds, the life and the society that it evokes, it never did exist.
Right.
However, back in the 90s, with kind of this new dawn of widely commercially available technology and computers and the internet, the sound that the genre is making and the imagery that the genre delivers is not a past that existed, but almost like a future that we were promised was coming
at the time.
Was coming around the corner.
Yeah.
Because at the time, the visuals that you're seeing out of these records, which at this point I think are a little more dystopian because it's almost like, a reaction to the fact that things didn't turn out that way.
Uh-huh.
It's like this was literally what we were told how things were going to be, as kids. Like, everything's going to be run by computers and everything's going to be super clean, and it's just basically going to be like, that utopian like Demolition Man, kind of future. Wesley Snipes movie, old Wesley Snipes movie with a fucking Stallone in it if you haven't seen it. It's going to be this like technologically driven utopia where everything's like super clean and like convenient and everybody's needs are like essentially taken care of because the computers are just going to like make everything super easy, and that's obviously like not.
You thought a lot about this.
I actually haven't. I'm just like really coming up with this on the fly and I'm actually more reacting to what you're saying because I feel like I've had some of these ideas already, but I feel like hearing some of it confirmed by someone who's obviously making the music, has made the music, and has also kind of like lived through that same era. You know what I mean? I feel like I'm just now, you know how if you go through a trauma, you kind of need another person who's also a victim of that trauma to sort of like, oh yeah, that was traumatic. I've been kind of bottling it up or sort of ignoring it or just sort of like.
We're all victims of vaporwave.
I've just been sort of bottling it up and acting like it wasn't a big deal when in fact like maybe this whole time it has been a big deal. Because I think it actually wasn't until literally right now that it dawned on me that like, that was like something that when we were kids we were told.
I think about that a lot.
How things were going to turn out.
Have you seen the movie Hackers with Angelina Jolie?
Oh wait, I might have.
Yeah. well, it was in.
That was like a 2000s flick, right?
It was in '95.
95. Okay.
So
I can just imagine what a hacking movie in 95 would be like.
Right. So it's like all these visions of the computers are like the way that they show that you're going through a computer is like a 3D like movement in a ship, basically. Like, they're like, I'm in, and like all these like 3D graphics are happening, and
all these polygons are flying.
Yeah, or they're at the Grand Central Station or something, and they plug into they hook their laptops into the payphones, and they're hacking from the payphones,
as you would do in the 90s.
Right, and well, that was like that. That's cool, like that is what I want to happen, and there was a webcam like TV show that they would watch that these like hackers would do, and that wasn't really possible back then. And then by the time we got to where you could make webcam shows and stuff, it's like, well, we're on YouTube. It's kind of like, it just seemed like less stylized, and because it's so democratic, where you have everything, so you can't like have it. There's no like specific feeling to YouTube. Each channel is different,
Yeah.
It's just a medium. So like I really take into that. I guess since you haven't seen it, I don't know why I'm talking about it so much, but I really like. I think it's a terrible movie, but I really love it because I guess the way it makes me feel. Prodigy has like 4 songs on that soundtrack.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's just like 4 songs from one artist on the same soundtrack. It's really good.
It sounds like it was almost like the way that you're describing it. It sounds like it might also be like a proto Matrix kind of thing.
Yes, I feel the same way about it. Yeah.
Yeah, because Matrix, I mean, obviously that is a huge film that a lot of people still look back on, but a lot of people don't necessarily appreciate how many other films that come out around that time that were sort of like playing with similar ideas of sort of like hacking into some kind of technological mainframe and sort of like
the mainframe, right?
Virtual reality versus real reality and so on and so forth. There were a lot of films sort of playing with those ideas. Lawnmower Man, I think, was like another one that was like somewhat popular at the time that toyed with similar sort of like sci-fi virtual reality, ones and zeros, technology dystopia, that sort of thing. So, yeah, I mean, I think and I think to people who are a bit younger and don't remember that era at all of media, of science fiction, of sort of this dawn of technology, and all they remember is just sort of like, being in a time where the internet was more convenient and you didn't need to wait a half an hour to download a song or something, all of the,
overnight for me, 28.8.
Those ideas are just sort of like, that never hit them. So it's like, in a way, Vaporwave might seem kind of like sillier based off of nothing, or just like, again, nostalgia for a time that didn't exist. But to get off sort of the Vaporwave,
I don't think it's because they're like too young to remember the 90s that they think that Vaporwave is silly. I mean, I think it's probably, you have a more you're more likely to not think that it's silly if you're younger. It's definitely like a young
you think so?
thing. I think so, yeah. I mean, there's definitely older people.
There are probably like 50-year-olds who would think it's silly regardless.
Yeah.
But I think probably being subject to the type of promise of a future that you and I were maybe make us more likely to feel a certain way about the genre as opposed to...
Well, that's the thing. I think so. I am not. We didn't touch on this earlier, but I think that maybe the way that the conversation has been flowing, in the way that you are treating me right now.
Am I treating you okay?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
What I mean is like the way that you are taking what I'm saying as like some sort of like Vaporwave like encyclopedia. I'm not. Okay.
Oh, I don't think you're a Vaporwave encyclopedia. I'm taking everything as your own.
But they might.
Perception. Well, they might. However, I
just wanted to clear that up. I'm not.
I think your opinion should be taken seriously as somebody who's obviously participated in the genre in a significant way, which cannot be said of most people who have opinions on Vaporwave. So, not a Vaporwave encyclopedia, but
right. Well, sure.
Yeah.
I feel like there's the people who I say a lot of things that contradict what everyone who is involved in Vaporwave is. So I have,
as any musical scene with tons of people operating in it.
sure, and they all get on the same plane where like people feel like this, Vaporwave means this or it is a meme, and I've been like outspoken being like, that's dumb. Like music shouldn't be a meme, and music, that's just my opinion. Maybe music can be a meme, but it's just like the way that I like music. It's just like everything else is a meme. Like leave my music alone, kids.
Well, also I think it also opens up a discussion about memes and how we should consume them, because I think it's a little, I think it's a little short-sighted and hypocritical, especially for young people who, if you think something is less significant or less artistic or less meaningful or less important because it's a meme, here's the thing, like,
No,
how
you're
much
just going to tear me apart.
Well, how much of internet communication today is based off of memes? Like it's literally the language that we speak online right now. So it's like to sort of deride memes and write them off completely as something
Well,
that can't,
I post memes.
Yeah, well, I know you do.
Yeah.
So it's like, obviously, look, I think what most people sort of like don't necessarily like about memes, or sort of mixing memes with their art and so on and so forth, is that memes are usually just kind of perceived as funny, And sometimes people want to be taken seriously, understandably so. So, to sort of like have that barrier, sometimes is important, because you want to illustrate to the crowd that I'm not trying to be funny right now. I'm not trying to make a meme.
Well, sometimes I am trying to be funny.
Oh, I know you are. But it's like,
and even with my music.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But just, I don't know.
But when you are trying to be serious, it is convenient to sort of just communicate to the crowd, because it's probably the easiest way that you can do it. Just to say, okay, I'm not making a meme. This is not a meme, just so that it's not a joke, or I'm not trying to be joking.
Well, I don't say that.
Yeah. Maybe the general you, maybe not the literal you.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, they know it's for real when the lights turn on.
I'm glad that there's that signifier there for you to let them know that it's serious when the lights flick.
And there's just something in the air. It's so wow.
So
I'm buzzing off the tour, So
okay, good.
Whenever
well,
I think
at least you're buzzing off of something. Yeah. So, all right. Well, let's continue with the nostalgia bit then, because sure. I do think it's an important piece of the pie. So, to go back into the nostalgia, but off of the Vaporwave thing necessarily. So, nostalgia obviously still plays a role in the music that you're making under the George Clanton name.
Absolutely.
But you're not strictly making Vaporwave music. Obviously, there's an influence.
I don't think that I have been for a long time.
Yeah.
I released.
We know you have before.
Yeah, I released like 2 short albums in direct response.
Yeah.
Totally derivative from Floral Shop specifically. Yeah. I heard that and I go, wow,
I'm there.
This is cool. Like you could do this with all kinds of music and it would sound awesome. So then I just, farted out some songs really quick, anonymously, and didn't really realize that anyone would care. And then when they did care, I didn't feel a lot of personal connection with that music. So my natural inclination was to try to make it without taking from something else.
So there's obviously this evolution here that we're talking about in terms of when you've made Vaporwave, when you weren't making Vaporwave, but that's clearly not the point that you're at now with George Clanton, with the latest record. But there's still a nostalgia factor.
Yeah.
So how does that play into your newer music as opposed to how it might play into an older work of yours?
Okay.
Since nostalgia is still there, it still seems to come from the same era of popular culture, but
it does.
It manifests in a different way.
And it, to me, like, I guess that the I've been calling, and even on this album, I tag it Vaporwave. I put as much of that in to like try to entice the community
because
to come to it, give it a try, taste it,
and
see
it's
what you
worked,
think.
Right?
Absolutely.
Because there's obviously an aesthetic commonality there that they take to.
It's such a, well, the thing is, okay, so Vaporwave is not like, it's not like chill wave It's not like Witch House. It's so much more broad, and it has not died.
And and that's the other point. It hasn't died in the way that those genres
So
have.
it's malleable.
Yeah.
And so I say, well, now this is Vaporwave. What do you think? Does it, and if it sticks to the wall, then great. Now I'm Vaporwave David Bowie. Copy that. So,
Wait, you heard that here first. The Vaporwave David Bowie.
So I'm trying.
George Clanton.
Right. So I'm comfortable in that position where it's just like I know that you can't make music free of influence, and I'm not even trying to. Obviously, not at all. But I'm not trying to make Vaporwave and I feel like that's clear.
Yeah.
But at the same time, the stuff that people say that's definitely Vaporwave is essentially, in my book, it's like George Clanton songs that don't have words. So I'm just making music the same way. And if I write words for it, and maybe there's something more subconsciously going on the way that I structure that, but for real, it's just the way that I do it. If it's more meandering and just kind of vibey and can't be performed in the same way live, that's my other project. That's called Esprit. And if it can be, it's George Clanton, and then I sing it and, put it on that record. Mm-hmm. But the process is the same, and I run the two concurrently. I'm doing both, I'm making songs for both projects at the same time. Whichever one hits 10 or 12 songs first wins.
An interesting thing is you just kind of had brought up not trying to make music free from influence. Like, obviously you wear your influences and the sounds that were popular during, this era that we were talking about earlier on your sleeve. However, through your embrace of that very wide array of influences with which, if you remember back in the day, I mean, we had artists like Beck back then who was not shy about, hey, let's make an electronic hip hop rock pop mashup, which I mean, there's a lot of that lacking right now in the mainstream.
Am I like that?
Well, what I'm trying to say is I think through embracing those influences, you've come through with something kind of unique because, it's I can't name a time, and I lived during that era where, I heard someone doing shoegaze, pop, electronic, alternative dance stuff, like all of those 90s influences are kind of coming together into a very unique recipe. And I think, in a way you kind of creatively illustrate a way that you can very boldly take from some very established ideas, but make something completely different in the process.
Yeah. I mean, thank you. And
you're welcome.
Yes. I liked, I liked it when you touched on that in the review. That made me smile at the time, It does now.
Yeah.
I like that.
Which I touched down on because I'm old. So I remember it. So
yeah. Right. What was the question?
I think it was more of just a statement that you respond
and
to.
And then I start responding.
Yeah, and then you start responding.
I had something to say, but I got pulled back because I started thinking about when the video went live.
Yeah.
And I wanted to talk about that, but we'll save that for later because that's a funny story.
Yeah.
I don't remember the flow of the conversation anymore,
it's
but
okay,
I feel like what I want to say was that, like, I think that maybe it's like a lot of artists, and you can see, obviously, like you could see it and you critique it. It's kind of an easier path to take to say, I'm really into this. I'm really into Led Zeppelin. I'm not going to say who I'm thinking about, but or I'm really into something, and let's make an album like this. So it takes me a very long time to make music. Like, I'm not like prolific. People think that I'm prolific, but it's really, if you look at how long it takes for me to do something, I've just not stopped making music for a long time. So it takes me a long time to put some music together, and I don't know what I want it to sound like, but and I don't have any rules for myself either. So I think that it's just, I'm listening to a very broad set of music from my past all the time. I haven't let go of that. Like I still highly value. We were just listening to Seal in the car.
Oh my God.
Young Aaron off camera says, yes, Seal.
Yeah.
Young Aaron off camera was like, George, are there 5 Seal songs that you would say are actually good? Because I can't find any. And then so I just started playing, you know, we were listening, we just started playing him some songs that I'm just like, I don't know that you can get into it. It's just something for me. Maybe it's not for everybody
I think it's also something you had to be there for.
Maybe you had to be
there
it's one
for
of those
Seal.
that you had to be there, because when I listen to it, I'm like, there's no edge on this. It's just like, but to me, the songwriting, it's all so beautiful. It just makes me feel great to listen to it. I want to sing along. And so I try to evoke that part of it. Like, I want this, you know, verse, and then when the chorus comes in, I want people to just feel like a well of emotion.
Yeah, you're not evoking literally the sound of Seal, but more the vibe that you get off of it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. The emotion.
You know, also something that I find kind of interesting about your music and your creative process and the influences that you're taking from is that, you know, a lot of the sounds that you're pulling from were very based off of rock music, live instrumentation, actual studio time, analog synths, all that stuff. And you're literally evoking those same aesthetics and vibes and sounds, but just all through your computer and just like all through a DAW. And it's like, what is the struggle been and the process been? Because I know sort of like creating that vibe hasn't always been easy for artists who have attempted to do the same thing. Like, what exactly has been your process to arrive to this point where you can just like recreate those sounds and vibes so naturally that somebody would normally attach to like a My Bloody Valentine record, but you're just literally doing it on your laptop?
Well, it's not effortless.
Yeah. No, obviously
Maybe
not.
it sounds natural.
Yeah.
You know, in the end.
It does sound natural in the end.
Yeah. But I think ultimately, you know, it's the same whether you're sitting there and you're toying with the amps and getting them right in the room. I mean, you can do all that kind of virtually, and it's just the idea, like, is it somehow, you know, better to do it for real in a room with your fingers and change the tubes and your tone and all that, when you can really just like get in with the mouse and like mess around with the equalizer in 1 second, and that's like changing the tube, or maybe even more interesting sonically than doing that. So I don't like, I guess it's just kind of like a convenience thing. So it's really not that much of a struggle.
Yeah.
I think it's the opposite.
Yeah.
Of a struggle. I think I never really like watched a YouTube tutorial on how to do anything, and I never had a mentor or someone training me, but I have been dicking around on the computer for a very long time and consistently through the years. And I think that I've found my, you know, little tricks that I like, and each time maybe I don't know that I get better, but it's just this new album, you're specifically talking about it, you know, it's different, and it sounds more natural. That was my intention this time. You know, earlier I was really into like Heaven 17 and wanted to sound like that. So like I was trying to evoke those kind of feelings that I was getting from taking 80s music seriously for the first time in my early 20s, you know, which I rejected up until then.
Oh, really?
And then, you know, now it's like, well, I spent all this time rejecting, you know, this other music that I actually have always loved, and I'm kind of coming back around into that, or not rejecting it, or just thinking that it's like not interesting because it's out of fashion. But maybe it is out of fashion and maybe it isn't interesting, but the ideas and the feelings, there's still so much to be mined there that kind of, I think, due to fashion and people getting bored, kind of, there's no room for like, when you come back again, we can come be make for it. There's no room for that on the radio. Yeah. Right now.
Not now, yeah.
And that's fine. I don't need to be on the radio. But what I mean is, yeah. So, but there's like, you know, that song hasn't been made yet. So there's a lot more songs that can be made that are outside of what is cool right now, and that I think that comes back around again to like doing the DIY thing and making your own record label and all of this stuff, to where it's just like, well, if nobody wants it, if nobody's doing it, let's just take a few years and not give up and see if we can't find our own group of people who have given up that there's going to be something like this for them. And then they find it, and everywhere that we go, it's just like, I've been searching for this type of music like my whole life. Like when I heard your music for the first time, like this is what I've been looking for, you know, and that's what makes me feel the best, because that's what I'm trying to do. I want more music kind of in this vein, so I'm just making it. Yeah. And then if I find someone online that's doing it, we put their record out and try to put them on tour.
So, with you doing the DIY thing, one thing that people don't necessarily appreciate about it that we were talking about earlier is just how demanding it is and how involved it is. And it does require a lot of effort to sort of just have control over everything and, just sort of have your hand in the creativity of all of this stuff. Where does that sort of put George Clanton and your future output in terms of priority, going forward? Because obviously this last record has been a really positive in terms of the reception, and it's given you the ability to tour as prolifically as you have been. Where are you right now in terms of writing and producing and creating for the next record? You were talking about earlier how it does take you a long time to come out with a record. When do you feel like you'll be sort of like putting out that next LP? Where's the priority with that at the moment?
The priority is it's not just work-life balance. It's like work-life creativity balance. Yep. And so I have more time to work on music now than I had in the past, because now my creativity is paying it for everything. Sure. But it also means that there's more work to be done on a daily basis. So that's where young Aaron comes in. He now handles all of the shipping. So that's one thing off of my back. I've taken an agent for the first time recently. I'm happy with him. That's another thing off of my back. So that, he handles all of that nightmare. We were just on tour, and like there's a lot of way that the lights work and the sound should be.
Because it is an audiovisual experience from the clips everyone has seen.
Yeah, for us, that is, I feel like, one of the reasons why our shows are so, I think that we have a disproportionate amount of ticket sales compared to how many people are listening to the music. Like, we have sold out gigs, big venues that artists who are clearly much bigger, are playing. We're on like the same level of ticket sales, but we're putting on like a really good show, and I take that very seriously. That makes my hair fall out, that makes me not have fun up until the point of performing. That makes me, it's a lot of work. I want someone to take over that, but I don't know that that's ever possible. Yeah. So touring, inevitably, there's no room for even calling my mom, like when we're on tour. I'm driving, I'm setting up, you get to the venue at 3, 2, set up, you perform, you leave at 2, 3, and you're there the whole time. You're selling merch before the gig, you're selling it after, you're doing all the changeovers. It's absolutely, unbelievably insane. You get rewarded for it. Yeah. But it's nuts. So if I want to work on the album, I have to say no to all of the offers to open for like a band who would be great for my career.
Is opening up for a big band as big a deal as it used to be? Is that as important or more important than putting out another record? I think during the internet age, the next record is what ends up growing your following.
The next record is the most important thing.
The next record is the most important thing in terms of income. It's also the most important thing in terms of spreading your audience, not necessarily
if it's good.
Yeah, if it's good, it's got to be a good record to spread the audience. But if it is that as good as a good performance in front of a bigger band, that's headlining ahead of you? I don't know if that's necessarily the case.
And it's not like they're like
2019.
Playing stadiums or anything.
Yeah.
They're not. They're just at
but
the
still,
next level.
even if it was a stadium thing.
Yeah.
Because
then I would say because I think that one of the things that people don't really know about me is that the shows are different than you would expect.
Yeah.
I think that it's my stronger than the music itself is the performance. The show, I think, is like the ultimate way to experience it. And I think that people come away from the show with a little bit of a different idea, the idea that I want them to have.
So priority with the next album is, you're kind of offloading responsibilities of some of this DIY shit, technically not doing it yourself anymore by hiring people.
That's right.
I mind you.
Yes.
So you have more time to, I imagine after the tour, get back to just sort of writing and recording, I guess.
Right. So I've got another tour that's just about to start in a couple of days, and it's going to be grueling. But
and as far as the new material and this new record, has the success of your latest album, because you've had other projects and other kind of musical directions in the past, has the success of this new album, will it be influencing you to stick to a certain project or sound or idea this time around, or are you planning on
it's just going to make me fucking nervous. No.
Yeah.
So I've been doing it long enough to know that when I try to do something, I fail. So I don't go into it with an idea. It just makes me loop the same music over and stare at the computer screen for months at a time. Like if I'm trying to do something, it just doesn't happen. The second I stop trying.
It's interesting that you say that, because maybe it's, maybe it's not the most clearly delineated concept album ever created, but there is kind of a concept or a linear theme to the record that you've just put out. I find it interesting that you didn't necessarily go into it with an idea, and yet it came out kind of, delivering a linear idea, as opposed to because it did read, at least to me, as kind of like the progression of a relationship.
That's very interesting.
Is it not? Correct me. Inform me.
I don't think so.
No.
But I don't like to correct people.
Yeah.
To come back to my Lord and Savior Seal,
who never corrected anyone on anything he had ever done.
Oh.
That was one of his. That's what he was most well known for.
Well, in his second album, in the liner notes, it says like, I don't print my lyrics because I want people to hear it the way that they want to hear it and relate to it. And I was very young when I read that, and I thought about it ever since. And I still think about that.
It's a pretty poignant idea to be exposed to at such a young age.
Yeah. And I think that because I bought it for Kiss from a Rose, and I don't know. Yeah. So Seal was actually like, I think that album, have you ever heard it?
I've heard the hits off of it because I remember them on the radio all the time.
Yeah. Don't Cry and Kiss from a Rose. But like, I didn't have many albums. You had to pay for them back then. And when you're a kid, you don't have a job.
Yeah.
So I had to beg for them. And I had a very few that I could get per year, so I just played them out. After I listened to Kiss from a Rose on loop like 10 times, I finally go, well, let's listen to the other ones. Most of my albums were bad. Spin Doctors. But
hell yeah, I had that Spin Doctors tape too.
Right. But 311 I thought was excellent.
I had 311 too.
Yeah.
Name another one.
Well, Seal, Fat of the Land was another one that blew me away.
I came into Fat of the Land later. I didn't have it as a kid.
Yeah. Those were the three that really, and I feel like I still call them out as shaping my whole life, those three albums.
Mm-hmm.
Bush, I didn't like 16 Stone all the way through.
I had 16 Stone though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was a hit or miss. I wish, in hindsight, there was a specific point in my life where it was in between the Spice Girls album, which was terrible, and I ended up getting that one, or Third Eye Blind. My mom said, put one back, son. and then I put back Third Eye Blind, coming back around again. That Third Eye Blind
That Third Eye Blind debut album is great.
It reads like a greatest hits. It's incredible. Every single
It's
song.
front to fucking back solid.
I know the hook to every song. It's that good. It's so incredible.
It is good.
And when I read the reviews on like AllMusic by that guy who called you prog, dark prog, then he's like, they say, this is kind of like a run-of-the-mill mediocre album, but like post-grunge, like soulless or whatever. Like I disagree completely. I really relate to it. I relate to his story. I heard that Semi-Charmed Life didn't hit until he was 35, and he was like been making music his whole life.
And also, as far as pop rock on the radio goes, Graduate was hard as fuck.
Dude,
Graduate's a hard fucking song.
Never heard that on the radio where I was from, and I love that song now.
We played it on the radio. And you hear that outside? That's why we played it on the radio, because it's hard out here.
Yeah.
We needed that on the radio. No, we played that on the radio quite a bit.
When I went to college, my friends in Northern Virginia said that that Third Eye Blind was like a big band, and I was like, we had an alternative out of Eden, North Carolina called 94.5 something, and they only played Semi-Charmed Life and Jumper. Can I give you a gift on camera?
Sure.
You have to act like you like it.
What are you giving
me? Are you
me?
going to edit it out?
You've already given me a gift of, you gave me your record.
Actually, I've got another one in the car. And
what,
I've got
another copy of your record?
No, another gift.
Oh, okay. Well, if you have a gift here, you could give me a gift on camera. I will not edit it out.
Yeah, I promised that I would give you.
Is it a gun?
No.
Okay.
So I've got two gifts. I've got surfing. We just went on tour with surfing. They're from Australia. I'm going to give you the surfing gift.
The surfing gift. Okay.
Looks better on the back, maybe. Yeah, show them the back.
There's the back. There's the front. Here's the surfing gift.
You're going to love it.
Okay. I'll give it a shot.
I'm going to give you my worst selling T-shirt and see what.
Give you the worst selling T-shirt?
It's the George Clanton. Let's show it to you. The George Clanton death metal T-shirt.
I love that.
I love it too. I think it's so much fun.
Well, whenever I've ever tried to do a piece of like thrash or death metal inspired merch, it sells the worst.
I don't think that people can understand how to like shit out of this.
People do not appreciate the aesthetic. They don't appreciate the aesthetic of it at all. Like I think metalhead aesthetic is so fucking underrated, and I think that so many kids just like don't really appreciate it. Ironically right now, there are a lot of rappers that appreciate it more than, the white suburban internet kids do, because I see all these rappers out here with death metal shirts and like gory fucking logos and that sort of thing. Like obviously they see the artistry in it, but these internet kids that listen
I've got to get them on my side instead of the white suburban.
Yeah.
Oh, well, in addition to all fans are important, of equal value to me.
It's true. It is true.
Like, it's like what you see bands and they're like, oh, these fans suck or something like that. And just like, well, what room are you going to like? Who do you want to be in the audience? Just like a bunch of like dudes in like leather jackets, like being like, yeah, I know this, or like who? I can't think of one room in the world where everyone in it is cool other than this one.
And that's because there's almost nobody in this room right
that's
now.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, it is funny. I've made that same point myself, and I feel like I can only make this point with more accuracy than most can, because I literally deal with multiple fan bases of multiple artists and multiple things on the internet all the time, and in person too.
Yes,
and
you're an expert.
And I would say I'm an expert only in the way that one can be without having done any research on the topic whatsoever, and just through personal experience.
Yeah. And
my personal experience is that all fan bases are annoying. All of them. There's not a single fan base that I've ever run into that is not annoying.
People are annoying.
In some kind of it's because people are annoying.
Yeah, you get enough of them in a room, something bad happens.
If you get enough of them in a room and they have an almost blind love for a particular thing, and that thing that they love can do no wrong. Yeah, it's bound to get fucking annoying. It's going to get real annoying in there.
But I'm actually really comfortable in that environment, so I say I appreciate them all. If everybody in one room is celebrating me, Wow.
Well, why wouldn't you be comfortable in that environment?
Exactly. Yes, I can do anything.
That's the environment you operate the best in.
God bless him.
God bless him. Bless him. All right, I think we can end it here, man.
All right.
Unless you have anything else profound to say.
Man, we didn't touch on anything that I thought that we would.
I feel like we've had such a like a conversation that's much greater than I feel like we've talked about some pretty highfalutin topics.
Yeah.
You know, we didn't talk about the music a lot.
No.
But I think we did approach some important topics.
You know, the music speaks for its. What can you talk about the music?
The music speaks for itself, but also in a really roundabout way. I think all the stuff that we talked about does impact the music in a huge way. It
absolutely does. I feel like my music is like the reason I started going by my own name. It's like so much of the person. It's like everything that makes me is the music now, and it's just inseparable. So it's just like to talk about the albums that I had when I was a kid, those experiences, discovering Third Eye Blind late, you know, like all of that, like that's the concoction that ends in this, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I think, you know, the interesting thing about your music is that I think it's very much a reflection of what happens every decade, and that's that there is kind of this critical reevaluation of everything culturally that went on 20 years ago, and then you just kind of like go back.
Canon
exactly,
is established.
And you go back over it and you find out what actually of that era, outside of the stuff that was obviously good and obviously popular at the time, what about all of it had real artistic merit to it that withstands the test of time. Because once you've gone 20 years down the road, that's a totally new context. And if something that you've done is genuinely good in such a way where it wasn't totally dependent on the time frame that it happened in, you had to be there. You know what I mean? A lot of popular art is based on you had to be there. Mm-hmm. Honestly. Yeah. And, you know, you have the opportunity to go back and listen to stuff like, oh, well, you know, this Third Eye Blind record is great. You actually didn't have to be there, because still today it sounds like.
Yeah, because I wasn't there.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't have it.
And there are some artists, and like I said, you know, Fat of the Land is another thing. I came into that much later. I did not really, you know, listen to anything outside of the popular songs on the radio.
So incredible.
It's incredible. You know, but again, that wasn't really something I sort of had an intimate experience with outside of what was on the radio. And you know, there's some other things that from that era too that have you know, been the same for me. But you know, I'm sort of waiting for a time where we're going to totally reevaluate nu metal. I think we're almost getting there.
Oh my!
You know, we're so close.
I've been biting my tongue on this because you're on one, and I didn't want to interrupt, but I just wanted to like look into the camera when you were talking about all that stuff and say Korn. You know, like nu metal. I've recently moved to Los Angeles, and I've got like a bunch of.
That's where a lot of that shit came from.
Friends,
California,
like fashionable, you know, like, and like nu metal is the new like dope vibe. I'm not even kidding.
Raver pants, wallet chains, baggy shirts, eyebrow rings, and
my so we're doing a 100%. You've got the minimal wallet. We've got the 100% electronic wallet chain coming.
Okay.
And obviously on the have you seen the back of Slide? You know what I'm saying? Like I'm on that shit.
Will you
already.
Also be dropping some
Jinkos?
Will you be dropping some lava lamps and blacklight posters?
I hadn't considered it.
Bring back the blacklight poster, please, in 2019.
Okay.
Bring back
the
blacklight poster.
That's probably has a cheaper entry level than lava lamp manufacturing.
It does. But who's doing blacklight posters right now? Nobody.
I don't know. I never had one. I wasn't like really allowed to publicly listen to nu metal, but we had some secret Korn and some secret Limp Bizkit. That was the extent of it. Like what they were playing on TRL is what I ended up getting into. Mm-hmm. But I've recently gone back on Korn and love it. Korn actually. You know the second Make It Forever that meanders quite a bit longer. That one brings down the house, man. That's the one that brings down the house. But so at the end, there's bagpipes in it.
Okay,
that's Korn.
What is a sample?
No, I mean that's Korn.
Oh yeah,
influence.
Jonathan Davis played the bagpipes quite a bit.
So I was listening to that and I was like, man, I want to end this album with the bagpipes. I didn't like the ending, so I wrote the new ending. You know, after that. And my new song, we're doing like an Esprit set in this new tour.
Mm-hmm.
Freak on a Leash is how we, like a remix of I swear to God, I'll play it for you off camera. A Vaporwave remix of Freak on a Leash.
Okay.
It's so epic. It's awesome. It's beautiful. And everyone is just like, they're ready for it.
Yeah.
They're just ready for it. That's all.
Yeah. I mean, you know, you got to give it to the 90s. Pop music was pretty diverse at the time. You know, you did have this huge burgeoning.
It was epically diverse.
It was
What an
epically
incredible,
diverse. You had
how
this
many artists were
huge-
coming original back then? So amazing.
You had not only the grunge movement,
Yeah.
but you also had hip hop putting out its biggest singles at the time.
Yes.
You also had these huge electronica artists coming out at the time.
Yeah.
Dance pop was
That was pop music.
that was pop music.
Dance music was pop music.
Dance music was pop
Well, I guess
music,
dance
but
music is
also
pop music
but
now,
also
but it's
dance
different.
pop was kind of being revolutionized at the time as well.
Yeah.
And then on top of it, you also had artists like, you know, Cake and Beastie Boys and Beck and, you know, the line, it
all
goes
the
down
genre
the line of all the genre
shifters.
fusions. So there wasn't really, you couldn't really ignore a single genre. You know what I mean? You were being exposed to it in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
You know, so
TRL. You've got Korn and Backstreet Boys
competing
back to back
for the top
number
10 spot.
I remember that, and it just seemed so natural at that time.
Yeah, it did.
It was awesome.
It did, and it was.
I mean, it was lame. Old
Yeah,
shit.
it was. It
old
was.
bullshit.
It was also lame as fuck.
Yeah.
But you know.
Yeah. It was fun at the time, you know.
But the thing is, I feel like you don't get to the point where we're at now, where there's this total evaporation of these cultural barriers between different genres and different sounds. I feel like you don't get to that point now without what had happened then. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for bringing this internet experience IRL in
Yeah.
this space over here.
Well, thank you for allowing me to do so. I thought it would be more fun if it was real life.
Yeah, I think it's been more fun in real life.
I didn't know where you lived.
Yeah.
But I said, I'll just fly to wherever you are and let's do it, because I'm sure whoever watches this, you know, I'll sell enough T-shirts to cover a plane
Enough
ticket.
death metal T-shirts.
That's right.
Yeah.
So it's just like, let's just do it. You know.
So hit up the death metal T-shirt. We'll drop all the information to George Clanton's stuff down in the description box. Of course, of course. Check out his latest record. Watch my review. And shout out once again to Max 650 for having us down and allowing us to do this interview and being so generous with their space. We will link you again to all of their stuff in the description box too. And yeah, this has been great.
A lot of stuff to check out.
There's a lot of stuff to check out.
Check out all the old records too, and then everything else that is on the label and everything that I've ever talked about.
And
Check
everything,
all that out too.
everything that he will do from now on into the future, regardless of my feelings on it. So this is a permanent
Yeah.
endorsement of everything
Come
that
back
George
and watch
does.
this video.
Come back and watch this video another time, even though that puts no money in your
In our
pocket.
dark future.
Yeah, it'll
Yeah.
it helps out me. This is just a blanket endorsement of everything that George does into the future, regardless of how I feel about it.
Yikes.
The present me endorses it. Future me may have a different opinion,
Yeah.
but present me, and this is probably the best I'm ever going to get at this point. This is my peak. After this, I'm falling down. Don't take anything after I say this seriously. This is a blanket endorsement of everything that he does past this point. So there we go.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm going to cut that up and make it say whatever I want it to say.
I'm going to cut out the part where you said that you're the Vaporwave David Bowie and make that say whatever I want it to say. Deal?
All right. Thank
Okay,
you.
cool.
I'm the Vaporwave.
Forever.